Okay, thank you everyone for joining me. Today we're going to talk about how to use XML in combination with Access. And during the presentation, I'm going to be answering your questions. So if you have questions, I encourage you to type them into that chat icon so I will see them and then I can go ahead and answer them for you. The first question is, have any of you used XML for something in the past? So if you can go ahead and type your responses in that chat, I'll go ahead. I will receive all of them.
I didn't check it tonight.
Okay, so today we're going to focus more on specific situations you might encounter in XML and how we can use that in combination with SQL to get the best bang for your buck, so to speak. So I first want to talk about XML and why it's important to use it and what the benefits are. Is it the fastest, the smallest, or the most relational? It's really not any of those things. So you might wonder, if it's not the fastest, not the smallest, and not the most relational, why we would go ahead and use it at all. The best reason is the interoperability. It works very well with different systems. Other systems are sometimes very complicated to understand. XML is pretty simple in comparison. It's all in text. And it's a tool that's available to pretty much everybody. So if you decide to go ahead and use XML, you can take advantage of the fact that it's widely available and then create pretty much your own text language for XML. It also works really well with Access and SQL. And that's another reason why it would be beneficial to use. So if you're wondering how you can use XML, there's three things that I want to talk about. I'm not going to go into a full discussion about each of these, but I just want to introduce the concept. The first one is XPath. And that explains how we can pick and record our XML text. There's 5 elements to XPath. So knowing which one to pick and how to best use that will help you use XML more efficiently. The next is XQuery. That's pretty similar to SQL. And basically, that's the question function. So again, I'm not going to go into an intense discussion about this, but basically it is the way to ask questions. And the next is the XML library. And another reason to use XML is because they have the XML library available. If you don't know how to create your own text language, you can use the XML library to build your own. So you might ask me if XML is safe, but you need to be responsible with how you use XML and provide the data. The data pathway is not always protected. It's up to you if you use HTTPS or SSL, either one. But that's really your responsibility to figure out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and continue. If you read my blog a few months ago, I wrote an article explaining how we can use Open XML. But I did find a few problems with that software. And to summarize, it doesn't require any memory management. Meaning that when you don't want particular text in your program, it's hard to erase that from the memory. And it can cause problems with XML. And we don't want that to happen. Open XML also allows us to use different functions. I'll go ahead and give you one example later, and you'll better understand what I mean by that. The last two are pretty interrelated. The third one, or the fourth one rather, is it works in Azure, and the third is it uses more concise syntax. If you see that code, you'll see that it requires a few different symbols. For XML, there'll be two things. One will be stored, procedure, and that's how you save your code. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. That's where all your memory gets stored, and then you'll see at the bottom, that makes sure that the memory is released when that particular sequence is finished. If there's a mistake, it won't finish. It'll go back to the beginning, and that memory won't get released. It'll just be stored on your computer. That will cause SQL to run more slowly and possibly crash. And we don't want that to happen. Another possible problem I'm going to highlight for you is with Open XML, we explained how to pick the different elements. So if you look at XML, you'll see a very short code. So we have two presidents. The first is attributes. That's what's highlighted there. That attribute is the ID. And then we have the second element. And underneath that, We have extras.
I hear some keyboard
underneath
noises.
the extras.
I'm going to ask everybody to mute their microphone.
You need to break somebody come in for a little bit?
I mean,
Not that it ever would be. Hi, this is the interpreter. I'll be taking over for a little while. Okay, let me go back a bit. And I noticed that the last the extras that are added on, they don't have the same information involved. The first one is the first president actually has, if you can see, the first president has what's called a code that's like almost, I would label a lie. It's empty. So it is, it's really the federal player or the federalist. It could be fake and it could be real. So you have to, the approach is that you have to check to see if it's fake or if it's real in XML, or you can type in real or fake, and that's how you can find out. Am I right? Okay. Okay. The path will help us pick the exact element. Okay. And we'll review some of those tools later on. But right now, you have the element has to be picked, and then when you go down a little bit further, they look similar, the two of them, but the results are different. Watch, I'll show you. So if you have a column and it's actually, I'm going to use the word lie, and then there's a zero underneath that, or an okay, so it's a zero, and it doesn't seem right. It won't look right, and it should actually be really a value. So the zero there is not what you want there. So let me go back to the code here. Before, when we were doing the three, when we were talking about the 3 lines, this has only got one sentence. It's different than the one with the 3 lines. This is, as you can see, it's highlighted. The open node, and then the second node is similar to the SQL graph. So you pick that one out. You pick that node from there. You take it, and then you use the 4 different XML functions. Okay? If you see our own user, the value that we're talking about here, if you pick it up, if you look at it and you read it, the attribute is, the ID is @ actually, as in the @ symbol. And that means we've picked the attribute. And that's to the You don't want the, is it extreme? You don't want the elements. You don't want that. So that's important to notice. You will use, let me show you in the little box here. You see that little box, the brackets? That means that you've picked the first one that happens to show up, and it's a match. Ignore that, though. You'll have to ignore that and go with the first one. And you have to realize that what we're doing here is very different. It's XML is a pathway which adds to, can add to. And the opportunity's there, but you have to get used to the SQL, the experience of that, because it doesn't have two, and it doesn't have two names. So the XML will have the pathway, but you have to again realize that the only one here that we're concerned with is probably taking that and utilizing it in the appropriate sequence or manner, okay? Because when you're looking at this one that is fake, you have the two different paths, and it's important to know and how they're expressed, whether they are false or not, and it's important on how you use them. If you replace them with the value of the extremist, then that will only be there in the XML, not, okay, that won't be in the XML. If you compare it, watch, I'll show you. So if you see it, the code right here, it doesn't show the lie, as in LIE. It says you see the print there, right? You see what it's saying and how it matches. Now watch this. The Open XML is not doing that. So when you use the nodes and you approach when you use it with the user node approach, would be something like this. It's bringing everything together, and it's very simplified. I'll show you. Watch this. Okay, the open door questions now is on Azure. Okay, those are right there. And we'll get the wrong comment, and we'll get an error message in Azure, because it's a learning process, and it's a different method for the nodes and the functionality of it. So it will be easier as you go along. But if you see here, there's a little bit of a few things you have to be careful about. XML is very case sensitive, extremely case sensitive. But what will happen is, notice again on the screen, okay, did you see that the everything is gone in the what appears to be the URL? It's completely gone. And Oh, in the George Washington, okay? That, if you notice the name. You see the name there? The letter is changed from XML because it's not a capital. Okay, it starts as a capital, and then it doesn't work. It doesn't match up. So you have to be really, really careful with that, with your case sensitive, and you have to match it exactly precisely, or it will not work. And you could be a little concerned or work with it, but you'll realize as you go along that it's just a matter of playing with it a bit. I forget that one. The element. The element is, that's part of it. That's part of the whole process, being able to utilize that accurately. And then if you have the XML, it's different than the element. You have to be very careful with the two and the differentiation between them. Before the processing, before we continue, I want to see if anybody has any questions. Does anybody have any questions? Or if not, then just type in no questions. All right, for now. There we go. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I'll continue. Okay, now if you see this, you're like, oh my God, I don't want to get involved with this. I can't do this. This is too much. It's just, don't worry. I have tools available for everybody. How to figure this out, what to do, what's right, what's wrong, all different kinds of avenues for you to practice with. Okay, right now, if I copy and paste something like this, that's a tool that you can utilize. That will help you with any questions and what's happening and what type of what may be possibly wrong with your code and how to pick the appropriate ones. Okay, see, this is I've picked these. These are the results I have. I've been very specific with which ones I want to pick, and the point here is the value, and you could see the value from that. You can, right, and there'll be questions. It'll test your XPath expression. Excuse me, interpreter. And then let me just show you another aspect. Okay, there's a lot more involved in this, and there's many tools you can use, and some can be complicated, but look around and play with it and run your mouse over it and see which ones that you feel most comfortable with, as I am doing now. See if you see how I did this, and you click onto it, then it'll automatically bring it down, and then that will tell you what to do. It'll give you your XPath result. Okay? And then if you get to that point where you're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, you can always pull it out and download it, and then you can ask questions. The third one would be the XPath Evaluator. And that will enable you to expand on the typing aspect. It's strange because it's not working. Let me see what's going on here. Hold on a second. Let me just see. Hold on 1 minute, please. It's not working. I can't show it to you. I wish it was. It's on Chrome, but it's not on the IE. It's not working. Oh, the Internet, I'm sorry, Internet Explorer, it's not working. I'm so sorry. But the last tool is a little bit more, it's a little overkill, but it is available for you, okay? It's called Visual Studio. You can use it for free in XML, and you can edit. You don't need a professional editor while working with this program. As you can see, you pick one from the XML. You pick which one. From the XML, you pick one, and some of the basics will help you. It'll be a little bit easier, but you know what? I mean, if it feels overwhelming from the XDL, I suggest and recommend that you utilize the schema, which and here it is. This is something that is readily available. Look through that, pick out what you want. I'm going to show you what it looks like, this whole schema avenue. I'm going to show you what it looks like so you have an idea. You can utilize it and be creative with whatever you need to do inside this schema. XML. Really? Okay. And this schema here, you can see there's additions, and there's also more help here for you. Let me show you. Why? Configurations. Okay, if you look at this and what they're related to and how it's connected to the writing, you'll see the options that are available. Most of the time you won't have to use it, but you know what? If you want to try and use it, you can you can go into the file, and then what you can do is you can go to the XLD. I'm sorry, it's XSD file. And that's a very, very good tool to utilize. Before we continue, I want to just stop once again and ask if there's any questions by anybody. Does anybody have any questions? Give me a type in there, please, if you would.
So you already saw my example of the 4 possible functions for the memory. If you want to use a new function for nodes, you'll see how to do that, and that'll become a table. You can also enter values for that table, and then those will be your elements or your attributes. And then you'll have your exits, and you'll see if your elements are really there or if they're not. And then the last thing is, the last thing I haven't used, but maybe you'll decide to, it's the query. And that's a way for you to, that's the X query. It's a way for you to incorporate the functions that you've written. So now that I've explained all of that and the benefits of using XML, do you think you're ready to use it now? Maybe you think that you don't need XML, that it's not for you to use for your project, but I'm going to give you a few situations in which XML is actually more beneficial than some other programs you might use. For example, we have SQL people and we have Access people. So I explained before that both Access and SQL users can use XML in combination with their preferred program. One reason why XML is possibly more beneficial is because it prevents slow internet connectivity, or maybe that's something you're very concerned about. If you have forms that you want people to fill out on your website or things that take up a lot of memory, it's good to use XML for that because it will stop your users' computers from running slower. So first I'm going to show you some of the basics. Okay, I'm going to start with something very, very basic. This is a basic program. Okay, and this is just a pretend program. So pretend our consumer and our company is starting this website, and we want the consumers to call us, and we ask them about building a website. Maybe they want to buy some new service, whatever it may be. Understand that each product that we provide has a very, very complicated code behind it. So I'll show you that. So if you see this is one customer who wants something from the website, and you don't know exactly what to do and how to incorporate that, I'll go ahead and show you how. And the question is, do we want to provide a cloud service, or do we want to provide a design service? Or maybe we want to do some installation for them. I don't know exactly what they want, but each topic is going to have several things underneath it. And then once we pick that, we'll know what service they provide. Underneath one topic, there could be several subtopics. Under those subtopics could be even more bullet points. So it can get very, very complicated. So you can, in the notes area, you can write all of the specifics. So you see there, if you use only Access, this process might be really quick. But if you imagine a scenario where a person doesn't want to use Access, they want to upload something through that program, and they want to upload it to a SQL person, that's not going to work because there's two people using two separate programs. So if you see here, if you want to upload something, or we've already uploaded something into SQL, I'll show you how that works. So that's a data table that was created, that's in the cloud. Watch what happens if we try to upload that form. It's the same exact design from Access. I didn't make any changes to it. Watch what happens. So here it's loading, and finally it shows up. Okay, so now if we go down here and look, and we try to check off something, you see how slow it moves? I click on something, and it's not until about 5 or 6 seconds later that it actually gets checked off. That's going to be really, really slow. It's ridiculously slow. So my client's going to be really frustrated, call me saying that my program sucks and that my website is awful and I can't use it and it's slowing down my computer. We don't want our customers to experience that. So if we change our approach, and we sometimes we're going to have developers that aren't skilled with different programs. If we come up with a different data table, you'll see. Temporary data table, we'll see what happens. So we see that temporary table show up. We have our local table that we can use to paste all of our information. And if we take that information from SQL and paste it here into Access, we can make modifications to it. Then we can delete that table from SQL and re-upload it. So if you see the VBA, we've deleted it locally, and now we see the table just from the cloud. And if the SQL server, if we take that from the SQL server and then paste it back into Access, you'll see what it looks like. And I'll show you, if you have a lot of experience and you do it right, this is what it's going to look like. So see now how quickly you can check these things off. It's running fast again, so the problem has been resolved. But it's also possible our experience as we go along sometimes helps us and will help us figure out a problem, and sometimes it won't. Sometimes we can't figure out why something is running slower than it should be. Okay, let me just back up here for 1 second. Okay, so now you see it's there. So after we've modified that, we can go ahead and take it and upload it into SQL. And then the person who's on SQL can delete their old copy and paste their new copy. I just want to emphasize, this is what we're seeing from our perspective. You see the query string? You can go ahead and put anything in there. It's pretty simple. You see, it's a little bit slow, but it's not too bad. Manageable. It's manageable. But I can show you what really is going on behind the scenes. So I'm going to close this and do tracking, or tracing rather. So this is for tracing, and that can help us see what Access is really doing behind the scenes for us. So if you see in tracing, you'll see this is what Access is really doing. Everything looks fine. And after this break, you'll see what happens. Sorry, something is wrong here. Hang on one second. Okay, so if you see in tracing, you can ignore everything that went on before. So we're waiting for it to finish. Remember that we only sent one query, right? So we'll see what happens. We send one query and we see all of these lines of text. So really, Access is sending it again and again and again. For each line, that's one query. So you'll see one line, the query was sent, and then the same thing happened for every subsequent line. There could be something wrong with the local table, and that's why that's happened. Something is not working properly. But it really depends on the person's internet connection. If they have a slow internet connection, good luck to them. They're going to be waiting forever. So I do want to talk about XML and how that can help you resolve this problem of lag time and waiting around forever. You want the servers to communicate quickly. If somebody sends a query, we want to get it very quickly, and we want to respond quickly. We don't want to have to wait a long time for it to come back around to us. If it's a really complicated query, then fine, it is going to take longer, but a simple query should not take that long. It should be fast.
In the team request, if anybody else comes over, we're going to have to try and get one.
So now the last thing is Open. I'm going to use XML. So if you have a lot of experience and you really know what you're doing, you're going to see this is what will happen. So first you put down the breakpoint, same as before. So this is what will happen when you try to download everything. So this is what, again, is going to happen in the background. We're going to delete the old tracing and open a new one.
Why don't we switch for a little bit? Okay, so it's beautiful. It's one sentence, one query that was sent, and that was it. And that's exactly what we want. We want to be able to see just the one. Limit all the others and just see the one. Watch this. And that's actually what XML will help us to do. Feel free to keep. Okay, watch this now. As the sentence goes all the way around, each one goes, they're going to send it once, and then it's going to go around, and it's going to go to the user. It's going to go straight there, and then what's going to happen is it'll grab onto the other area, and they'll see that their internet won't slow down, and it'll be more user friendly to them. Okay. And now, before I continue, I just want to ask you guys, you people, if there's any questions out there. Anybody have any questions? Okay. My hope is that everybody realizes and wants a design that will use XML, why it's important to use XML for design solutions. They'll see it, they'll see the benefits of it, and then they'll realize that the XML it'll customize with the design. Let me show you an example here. The element or the attribute, okay? It can be a little bit confusing when in order to control your design. You have to know the I actually personally I prefer attribute, and I'll show you why. Yeah. I know. Let me set up. Hey, see what's going on here? All the columns, and it's a table for the attributes. What does that mean? That actually means that there's one row, and each one is interrelated. See here? See what this is doing here? When you compare this and you see that there's so much writing going on, and it appears to be over and over and over again repeating itself, and you open up the tag and then you close the tag, you do that. You can constantly do that. Again, opening it up, the tag, and then that's the first name, and then close it with each time when you open and close it, you'll notice that there's you'll get a very, very long code. And we need to put down the attributes once. You only have to put them down once. And what will happen is they will all compress, and that's actually XML can help you compress, was my point. Let me find out where I'm at here. Hold on a second. Okay. Okay, it'll help you with XML because the information, it should be, it will be the same, and it will null or default the values. So you don't need to put anything down in the XML for that. There's no reason for it. If you watch, let me show you. You notice I have the three of them that are highlighted here. The notes and the last two on the bottom. There's no notes, but you don't have to put the notes. You can leave it empty. It'll be included. But let me show you. You can actually write the notes and do them, but why? Why would you do that? Why would you add more to the why would you add more text? The point of the matter here, the whole thing here is to limit it. Or simplify it. You could do that. Then there's a third step, which you can control yourself with the XML design. The XML is very similar in relation to the graphs, and but it's clearer. It will show you the T-SQL. Where do you see that? It's actually a transact SQL. I'm sorry, it doesn't look like that, but to simplify it, if you're looking at the XML and you want to analyze it, it's a good idea to kind of do a short table in SQL as opposed to going back and analyzing it over and over again. Just do it once, that's it, put it in, and just see how it works with the table. Just do it once. I'll show you. So I must be doing something. Yeah. When you have the table and all the columns are set up, it's really interesting when you look inside because you're going to be ordering you'll see the ID, the activity, and all the sequencing. Yeah, here we go. If you read this once and then you input it, then what will happen is everything will be inputted and it'll work on the short table. But if you write it, it gets more complicated. The process just becomes way too complicated. But if you keep it on the short table and you just send it over and over again, it'll connect and it'll work perfectly. It'll be fine. Watch, I'll show you. Okay, and then if you use the short table appropriately, you'll see that it all intertwines. It meshes, and it can be modified. So it'll run smoothly, and everything will be in your hands in doing this in the SQL process. It'll be more manageable with the whole entire process. It'll all run totally smoothly, and it will merge beautifully. And remember, it's only done once. You only have to do it once. Any more questions before we go on? Okay. I'll continue now. Okay, and the interesting thing about the approach of the XML, does it mean the approach? Is when you put everything down and you do the modifications and then you input it into the SQL, what happens is the SQL Server will save it once. It'll save everything once, not double, and not part, not some, not maybe a piece of, and because that becomes really messy. What it'll do is it'll take the whole entire thing and it'll save the whole thing once it is modified and put in to the proper SQL into the actually when it's inputted. So the transaction, you can also control the transaction here. When you save it once, it's also very nice because you don't have to worry about other users, coming in, looking at it, seeing what's going on, modifying, making changes, watching your modification, and it helps us to probably better concurrency and modify just once. Okay, so far we've talked about how to write it, write it up, and the node and XML and Access. Now I want to talk about how to focus on using XML in conjunction with Access, how they can be utilized together. Okay, the code also is written. It's not written right. We don't want. Actually, we don't want to write the code. The point is that the XML will be modified, and let me show you this how everything can be how a new column can be added, and how we do it through the SQL, and then when we add the SQL and into the Access. the scheduling, and then the field and the form. And then when we're done with that, I'll show you VBA and then the SQL, all 5 of them, and the places where they are and the modifications. But you will experience bugs with them. You will definitely experience bugs with them. So let me just show you the beginning. I'm sorry, let me go back to the beginning of the presentation when I was talking about the other mentioning of when that VBA has tools as well. Okay? And let me just add a reference here. Or okay, either one, 3.0 or 3.2. I'm sorry. Clarification for the interpreter. One moment, please. .20 or 6.0. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, that's what I meant. We have the list of the functions for XML and the code for building. The function that will be changing here is the record sent. Record set. The record set. That will be changed to XML. And we're going to use that one first to make the XML, or we're going to call it the DOM, the DOMM, to indicate that it is the dominant sphere. Everything is under that, so DOM. Okay, that's what we've named it. And the XML will require that we have the element and the root. So we're going to put down for the root T, just for table. I just decided to use that because T just makes it easier, and it's easier to remember. The DOM is it's going to have a new. It'll allow you to add a new element that will not show up, and then you'll know exactly where it's showing up, and where once you've added it in. I don't either, but I'm ready. Is it time?
I know.
Unless I just say that we're stuck on a phone and I left early enough feeling off.
So under the root, you can add each sequence, and that record set will recur again and again. Each time that record set runs, you'll see columns come up, and I'll show you what that looks like. You can make a new element. But I noticed that. Notice that for the attributes, you have to name them something. So if you look at the columns, you can see what they're called. You can follow those names, and then it'll read your values based on the attributes. If later you decide to add another column, the code will still work because our record set is running for each column. So it doesn't matter how many columns you have, it'll run until the table is finished. And that's what XML helps us do. One problem with XML is that some people prefer a very specific date and time format. You need to have a year, a month, then the day.
Take me out.
And then you have to add in the T, the root, then the hour, and then the minute. And the minute has to be in 2 numbers. How do I do that? How do I? Sorry, we just had to hold a minute for the interpreters. Okay, so yes, it has to be the year, the month, then the day, then the letter T, as in Tom, followed by the hours, and then 2 characters for the minute. And that's the string that you need. Access won't understand that format. SQL probably will. And then you have the format function, which I can show you here. And then when the data runs, you'll see what's real and what's fake. And that's how you can learn what to expect. Thank you. Okay, another way to tell if it's, if you don't know if it's real or fake, go ahead and read it, and you'll be able to tell that way. If you see in the library will have every escape possible. You'll see some strange characters in there, but you'll see the escape come in automatically. I'll show you. So for example, if you type that in XML, it won't work. There'll be a lot of mistakes. So you can replace it with what I'm about to show you. You see there, XML will accept that format. You can go ahead and use that from the library. It won't always be automatic, but that's what it'll look like for you. So while it's reading the columns, again, you can add in XML, you can continuously add columns, and it will do that record set again and again until the entire table is filled in. Access doesn't have native XML data. We can do the best we can and use string variables because Access can understand both. So it can understand SQL and it can understand string. So if we change it to string, this is what it will look like. So if you call up that function, so here if you have XML and the different pathways, you can write down the string there. And then you can see from that function what we call up. If you notice, it says varchar, and that's a string. So we can go ahead and send that string to the other program, and that program will understand what we mean by that. A SQL user can receive that string and then go ahead and change it to make it real in XML. Then XML can go ahead and analyze that string, and that's how those programs can work together. And that'll work regardless of whether we use, regardless of the data we use from XML. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, great. So I'll go ahead and continue. Okay, so just to summarize what we've discussed so far, I know it's a new process about using node functions and replacing those with Open XML. But that does provide you more opportunities to customize the data you want to use. And XML and SQL can help you make better looking tables. So we've also looked at some tools available to you so you can tell if your code is going to run properly or not, and about your XPath and how to figure out if that's all going to work. And then we looked at Access and possible problems that can come up if you use only Access, and how to modify your code. We talked about potential problems with two servers that are communicating long distance and possible long lag times. And of course, not everything is always perfect, because sometimes the internet slows down regardless of what you're using. But using XML can give us the best chance possible that the servers will communicate in the most efficient manner. We want to just be able to send something once, have it go through, and be confident that it worked. We have a whole library available to us that can help us analyze our data and we can use if we have questions. And that is XML. So now I want to provide you an example of the program. So let's pretend that we have a product and we want to find different instances of that product. For example, let's talk about sewing. There are tons of different sewing products. There could be clothes that are long sleeves, short sleeves. You could change hems, add buttons. These are all different functions that a tailor can perform. So when a person places an order, they can possibly order one or more of these particular functions. Another scenario is a salesperson maybe has several different products. And maybe each product comes in different sizes and different colors. If you suppose you have a product, again, we can talk about clothes. We have 3 different sizes, large, medium, and small, plus 3 different colors, white, black, and gray, let's say. So we have 3 sizes and 3 colors. When we multiply, we get 9 different options. Then, if each shirt comes in women's or men's sizes, that would give us even more options for that particular product. So XML can help us make something like that run a little bit quicker because that table would wind up being very complicated. So now that I finished talking about that, I want to ask you, do you envision, can you envision a situation where you think XML might help you? Okay, Roy said you're not sure. Why not? Or Ray, I apologize. Ray said you're not sure. Okay, that is a very good point. Yes, you're right. It does take a lot. It is a big learning curve. And I completely understand that. And that is a very good point. Anybody have any other comments, or what do you think? Possible situation in which XML can be useful? Yes. Yes, for soap as well, it can be helpful. And you don't design XML, right? Okay. Now, one question about using information in conjunction with an iPad. I can see that. I'm not actually sure that that's possible. Maybe if we put something in iCloud, or in Dropbox. we can possibly get something onto our iPads, because our iPads work in conjunction with both of those things. But yeah, iPads can save your pictures and things like that. And then if you upload those into Dropbox, you'll send them into the cloud, and you can pull them down from the cloud through API. That is possible, I suppose. But I suspect there's a little bit of a simpler approach than doing that. What about another situation? So when I started the presentation, I mentioned that XML is faster, it's simpler, and it's smaller. Actually, I apologize. It's not necessarily smaller, simpler, and faster, but that it is more compatible with your other programs. And that's really the benefit of it, is that it gives you more availability whether you're using Access or SQL. So I think that's it for me. That's a really good question. Yes, that is possible because the new format is really XML. So in theory, yes, you can write all of that in XML format, and you can make a new Word or Excel document from that. If you're building a web service, with Excel, most of the time Excel won't run, because Excel is not really designed to run on the internet or on a server. There are other programs, for example, XML, that you can create tables that people can then fill in, similar to an Excel file, but not actually Microsoft Excel. And then once they fill in those files online, you can download them and open them in Excel. And yes, that is one way that XML might be helpful. So yes, that's a good point. I think that's it for me. If anybody has any other questions that are maybe not on top, that are maybe off topic, we'll close in about 5 minutes. All right. Everybody have a good night, and I want to thank the interpreters as well. Take care, everyone.